The face of the NBA should be obvious, right? It should be the guy that just won the MVP, that just won the finals MVP and got his first championship at 26 on a quicker pace than Michael Jordan. However, while SGA is a phenomenal player, he's also universally mocked. The face of the NBA has to have that aura about them that you know just as much as he does that he's the best player in the league, or at least he thinks he is, and he's also got to be able to beat everybody else on his way up.
Tiana, Khadijah, Lenny, Carvel, him, her, him, bodies. They're all dead. Clink, clink.
Yeah, that's him. That's the Saint.
Ant's rise to the top was ridiculously quick. By just his second season, he had the Wolves winning 46 games and as the 7th seed in the West. And this was a Timberwolves team that before Anthony Edwards was generationally bad. They were in the basement of the NBA for year after year. The only bright spot of their entire franchise was Kevin Garnett and then a couple of years of Kevin Love. Other than that, anything not having to do with a guy named Kevin was pretty much bad. And in his rookie year, they won 23 games. By his second year, we mentioned they had won 46. Now, yes, he had Karl Anthony Towns on this roster as well. But still, Ant came in and was immediately a dog. Year 3, they only won 42 games, but this was the year they brought in Mike Conley, who only played 24 games for him that year, and then they also bring in Rudy Gobert. So some growing pains. Anthony Edwards is continuing to get better year after year. He continues to increase his points per game, increase his three-point percentage, which is a huge key because Ant coming in, he was a guy that if he's coming downhill, don't get in his way no matter what because you're going to end up on a poster. But if he is on the perimeter, you let him shoot. And now he is leading the league in three-pointers made and is an absolute weapon, almost too obsessed with the three-point line like we saw in the playoffs, whereas if he just gets downhill, he's still unstoppable, but now he's unstoppable because you don't know what he's going to do and you can't guard him. And this is where we start to see the legend and the persona of Anthony Edwards start to grow, becoming known as the guy that will take out your favorite player in the playoffs.
And Ant-Man swept KD last year. And now here we are in the first round. And this brother, after taking them to the conference finals and getting smoked by Luka, is not only smoking Luka, he's smoking LeBron too. With LeBron doing his thing still, it's not enough. We just said it, Wendy, you said it. The best player in this series with LeBron and Luka on the basketball court is a 23-year-old with a $200+ million contract, playing like he broke.
As long as the hoe outside with the zoo shit never see home. 26-12 be the squad, we all beat the odds. How that shit unknown. To the phone all month is Porsche till he come out his home. I'm the type of nigga take a bad bitch sale and leave all type of dick pics in the phone.
In the regular season, he averaged 24 points per game on a very efficient 46% shooting from the field, 37% from three on about 7 attempts. They would get into the playoffs as the 8th seed, and that's where they would face off against the eventual champion Denver Nuggets. But this is where Ant kind of got his first label as a playoff riser because, yes, he rises up in the playoffs, and against the eventual champs, he did nothing short of that. Jamal Murray would actually lead the Nuggets in scoring this series with a solid 27 a night. Nikola Jokic averaged an efficient 26, 12, and 8. But it was a 21-year-old Anthony Edwards that led this series in scoring with Jamal Murray, with should be 4-time MVP Nikola Jokic, and he averaged 32 a night through 5 games. That included a 41-point explosion in Game 2 in a narrow 9-point loss in Denver. He followed that up with 36 points in a tightly contested loss in the first game in Minnesota this series in Game 3. Down 3-0 with their backs against the wall in Game 4 at home, trying to stave off the sweep. Despite a 43-point, 11 rebound, 6 assist stat line from Nikola Jokic, Anthony Edwards would drop 34 on an efficient 12 of 27 shooting from the field and 5 of 12 from beyond the arc to keep the Wolves alive and push this to a Game 5 where, yes, they would eventually get gentlemen swept, with Ant dropping 29 in Game 5, and they lost by 3. If Ant doesn't go 0 for 6 from 3, if he just hits one of those threes, they force overtime, and they have a chance to take this series back to Minnesota with it being 3-2, with a chance to force a Game 7. Unfortunately, they would lose, though, by those 3 points. But this wasn't the last that Ant-Man saw of these Denver Nuggets. The next year, which would be the 2023-2024 NBA season, the Timberwolves were loaded up. They won 56 games, and it was a historical season for the franchise. One of the best in franchise history. They had an all-star duo in Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns. Ant finished 7th in MVP voting. They had the Defensive Player of the Year in Rudy Gobert, and they had the 6th Man of the Year with Naz Reid. The emergence of Nickeil Alexander-Walker gave them more depth, and a full year of Mike Conley helped them out even more. And this is where the villain story for Anthony Edwards would take shape. The guy that is known to come in and knock out the big dogs, the NBA legends, sending them out to the pasture. First, it was his idol, Kevin Durant, who they matched up with in the first round of the NBA playoffs, the 3-seeded Timberwolves versus the 6-seeded Phoenix Suns. And for lack of better terminology, it was straight belt. It was a butt whooping. Despite Devin Booker's 27.5 points per game on pretty efficient shooting, despite a ridiculously efficient 27 a night from Kevin Durant, Anthony Edwards would once again be the leading scorer and the brightest star in this series, filled with superstars, as he averaged 31, 8, and 6 with 2 steals, on 51% shooting from the field and 44% from 3 as a 22-year-old. Ridiculous. Knocking out one of the greatest, most gifted scorers in NBA history, as well as Devin Booker, who's a top 15 player in the game, which set up Anthony Edwards for a chance with vengeance against Nikola Jokic, the NBA's MVP in the second round, facing this 2-seeded Denver Nuggets, and Ant wasted no time. In a 7-point dub in Game 1, Anthony Edwards dropped 43 points on 17 of 29 shooting from the field and 43% from 3. A breakout performance, if you will. Game 2 was a 26-point blowout that featured Anthony Edwards dropping 27 points and only missing 5 shots, which would lead to a big-time Game 3 for Denver. The Nuggets would go on to win the next 2 games, however, to even it up at 2 games apiece heading into Game 5, and Nikola Jokic was kind of showing why he thought he's the best player in the world with a 35-point triple-double in Game 4. However, he wasn't even the brightest star in this game because, yes, a 22-year-old Anthony Edwards, keep that in mind, dropped 44 on his head on 16 of 25 shooting in the loss. Denver would also win Game 5 behind a 40 ball from the Joker and an inefficient 18 points from Anthony Edwards, spelled doom for the Timberwolves. However, this is when Ant iconically told the Denver staff workers, "I'll see y'all for Game 7. And what does he do? They go back to Minnesota and beat the Nuggets by 45 points, with Anthony Edwards dropping 27 points to Joker's 22. And in Game 7, with a chance to have one of the signature moments of his career, Ant kind of crapped the bed. He shot 6 of 24 from the field, absolutely emptied the clip. The Joker had like 34 and 19, but thanks to Karl Towns and Jaden McDaniel stepping up, the Wolves would win this, and Anthony Edwards would lead them to the first conference finals in forever in Minnesota at just 22 years old. This, however, is when Luka would have his way with the Wolves, and the Mavs won this one in 5 games. Ant dropped 24 a game on respectable efficiency, but it was the Luka Doncic show for this series. However, fast forward to next season, the Wolves make some changes, bring in Julius Randle. They end up going 49 and 33, good enough for 6th in the Western Conference. And who are they matched up with but Luka Doncic, this time with his new team, the LA Lakers. And this time the Wolves would flip the script on them. Luka would lead this series in scoring with Ant not far behind. However, in Game 4, with the Lakers desperately needing a win to send it back to LA tied 2 games apiece instead of the alternative being down 3 games to 1, Luka would drop 38. And it looked like it was going to be a masterpiece that would help the Lakers win that game, only to be outdone by Anthony Edwards dropping 43 points on 12 of 23 shooting from the field. By beating the Lakers, he knocked another couple legends off the list of who he needs to take out in order to be the top dog. And doing this all in the playoffs makes it even more impressive. He set up a date with Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler in the next round, and Steph goes out in game one, so it wasn't really a contest after that first game. But he still gets to add to his list Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry of legends that he's knocked out of the playoffs. And that includes one of the two greatest players of all time in LeBron James, the most gifted scorer of all time in Kevin Durant, and the greatest shooter and top 2 point guard of all time in Stephen Curry. It's quite the respectable list. Now, the one guy he hasn't gotten yet has been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who beat him this year in the Western Conference Finals. And that was a bad series for Ant, but we'll see if history repeats itself, because in his first playoff run, he lost to Jokic and Murray and beat them in round one the following year. In his second playoff run, he lost to Luka Doncic and beat him in round one the following year. Will the same be true with Anthony Edwards and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Only time will tell. But I think Ant has established himself as the face of the NBA for the next generation.